I'm Becky Fawcett, a mom by adoption, an infertile blonde, a female founder, and a businesswoman. Podcast rulebooks will say your introduction must always be the same for every episode. My guess is mine won't be, especially today, because I'm talking to another mom by adoption, female founder and businesswoman. For most of my life, I tried to be perfect and do what everyone else was doing. And then I tried to have children. That's my plot twist. Now I look for any opportunity to be different. I'm an outspoken advocate who wants to change the world, and this sometimes gets me into trouble. But for the most part, it helps me make real connections with real people. Welcome to my podcast, The Fawcett Report, and I'm so glad you're here. My friend joining me today is Jackie Cohen. She is a single mom by choice, an entrepreneur, a fashion lover, traveler, and she's always running late. So the description is enough that people could figure out how we're friends, but the always running late part, how are we friends? Because I am chronically early, and I'm telling my girls, early is the new on time. You're chronically late. I'm chronically early. We're still friends in spite of it all. It's all good. I'm so glad you're here today. Thank you for making the time. And I want to start off by saying that I feel like with so many of my friends, I have these amazing how we met stories, and you are no exception. Do you remember?
Oh, totally remember. Another meant to be story. I was walking on the streets in Philadelphia selling jewelry in the sort of the diamond district there. I ran into somebody that somebody knew, and we were having lunch, just a sandwich. And I told him that my daughter was adopted and I really wanted to give back to the community. And he was like, oh, you have to talk to my friend Becky. She's in New York, a mom through adoption, has a charity for adoption, and she used to do the PR for his jewelry company. So it was like this perfect marriage of exactly who I needed to introduce us.
I know. It was so great. Funniest thing is he was one of my clients when I adopted Jane, and I was stuck in Maine while the court papers were done for 3 weeks with Jane as being a sole practitioner publicist. And I worked the entire time, but some of my female clients gave me grief. And he was the one who said, if you email me one more time before that baby comes home, you're fired. He was one of my biggest cheerleaders through adopting Jane and the travel portion and the surprise timing. And here I am almost 20 years later, still remembering how kind he was. And then he introduced us. So like he's got a gold star forever in my book.
I love that.
So we have so much to cover today. Everybody listening is going to absolutely love you. But let's talk about the foundation that started it all for you, really, about the journey to become a mom.
It's funny. It's 11 years later, and I still get choked up because it's the best thing that ever happened to me. But my long story was I was 40, single, living in Manhattan, always a career girl, never married, and wanted to have a baby. And so I knew I could always get married, but having a baby, there was a very small window left. So I broke up with the guy that I was dating, another New York dummy. Hate to say that, but I was good at dating a lot of them. Broke up with him, and I decided that I was going to do IVF. As often, I would say metropolitan women who are working and career-oriented maybe have to try and get pregnant later in life. Over the course of 2.5 years, I went through 5 or 6 IVFs, 1 ectopic pregnancy, and lots of other issues. It was very sad. With each loss, it was harder and more emotionally draining, financially draining. And with each time, either, like I said, a loss or that I wasn't pregnant, a little bit of my heart would just chip away and be hurt and sad. And it was after 2.5 years that I said, I got to do something. My body's not meant to make a baby. And that's when I decided that I wanted to adopt.
These stories happen every day to a lot of people, but did you feel at the time you were it? You were the only one this was happening to, or did you feel that your story was common?
So I think it was a little unique because I was by myself. And even though I had family around to support me emotionally, you're in it by yourself. There's no one there to hold your hand. And when you cry, I remember this one time I was talking to my mom, and it was just after a loss. And so you have some medical procedure done. And I'm in the car and she was like, "Oh, you shouldn't take the subway to go to work today." And I was like, "My legs are fine. I can't have a baby. It's my insides that are broken." And it was just this horrible feeling. And even though I had people around me, I did feel alone. I will say that. And nobody can prepare you for the losses. I think that's the really hard part.
No, and I think with the losses, you don't want to become like this invalid victim. I get why you wanted to take the subway to work. You just want to keep moving right through it like nothing ever happened.
Yeah.
And that you're good. You're good because we're not allowed to necessarily show the world that we're not really good. This is not good. I get it. I really get it. So now tell me what happens. I know you found, surprise ending. She found a lawyer in New York. Tell me about that.
So through a friend of a friend who had adopted in LA, because I knew nothing about adoption, I think this is another thing that isn't part of the charity, but I think it's really interesting, at least in my experience. I knew nothing about adoption. Like, where do you go? There's not like a baby store. Who do you talk to? Why are these people talking about things take so long through these adoption agencies? It was just like this big mystery. I thought it was like this big cloud, and it wasn't very clear to me about where to start. I asked a friend of a friend, and she recommended this lawyer. So I spoke to this lawyer who then mapped out the stages and the exact procedures and how to go about adopting a baby.
That's it. I always tell people, it's like going to Mars without a map and you don't speak the language and you can't read the menu to order. Like you just have no idea what's going on. And over the years, I have become, with friends of friends, as I'm sure you have, this resource to call. Like we feel like we have to give back to those behind us and helping them navigate what this territory looks like and how you get started. What's the number one thing you wish you'd known in that scenario of hiring someone? I mean, you had the wherewithal to go ask someone. That's great. But not everybody has that wherewithal, number one, and not everybody knows someone. So what do you wish you'd known as a single mom by choice who was adopting?
I'm going to say, and you know this, I'm probably the luckiest person to ever adopt. And I don't want anyone to think my journey was the normal path. Even my lawyer said, I think this is the quickest adoption I've ever worked on. I'm very fortunate that my adoption journey was gratefully not filled with other losses, that wasn't filled with broken promises and failed adoptions. So I'm very lucky that I don't have that experience. What I was surprised about was the cost, which is very interesting because I was not a person in the world of charity before this. I always gave a little bit of money. Like if my friends were throwing something for cancer, I chipped in. But it wasn't something that I woke up every day and I was like, I'm going to give back. This is part of my DNA. And so I remember writing a $10,000 check to a lawyer, like in one check. It's not when you buy a house, certainly, or a car, you're expecting to put down a certain amount of money. So you've saved a certain amount of money and you have that money in your checking account or your savings account. But what I thought was fascinating was like, okay, so on Monday, come with your $10,000 check and then we'll get started. I'm like, oh, and it wasn't just one check. I was advised by my lawyer, there's two ways to do it. I spent $13,000 on ads in little tiny papers in little tiny towns all around the country. And so I chose personally to do it all in one advertising blitz is what she called it. So that means one time, $13,000, swipe the credit card.
Let's explain to everybody listening in case you're not familiar with this. And yes, this was 11 years ago. It's different with the internet now. But in New York State, where you lived, you have to identify your own birth mother match. And so prospective adoptive parents would advertise in places that their attorneys or agencies would recommend. You're promoting the fact that you are looking to adopt a baby from a woman who has made the plan to place her baby for adoption. And just so everybody understands what those ads were.
Yeah.
And they're very kind and they're very compassionate ads. And this is how you would get matched.
So it was a little tiny ad, and they advise you of states that either have good laws to adopt because each state is different. And then also, it's a little ad also about yourself. It's like a penny saver. I don't know how old everyone here is, but when I was growing up, it was like the little penny saver free paper that is at every grocery store or drugstore when you were growing up. So I guess it's funny. They still exist in little towns, USA. And you set up a phone number that they can call. And it had a little blurb about yourself. It said, 40, loves to travel, single, looking to start a family. Very brief, but a little bit about you. And I was, again, very lucky. The very first day, the very first call, the very first potential birth mom was this young woman.
It's a pretty incredible story. And just to fast forward, what happened 8 days later, you had Julia. We are going to put the caveat here of it's a very rare occurrence, but I also always want to highlight everyone's own individual adoption story and how incredibly magical it is. And it's amazing. Does not happen very often.
So I got the first phone call and she and I spoke for about 2 hours. And I said that I feel like there's a connection. And she said, I agree. And I said, would you be willing to speak to my lawyer? And she said, yes. Of course, I advise her that I pay for everything because, of course, these are generally young women in crisis, probably not financially stable. And so they probably hear the word lawyer and are like, whoa, the same way I didn't know because now I know if a lawyer comes to you, you're going to pay money.
Yeah. For those of you who also don't know, part of this adoption is first she had to talk to Jackie's lawyer, but then once the match is made, Jackie had to get her own lawyer and Jackie paid for that. Adoptive parents pay for that so that this woman has her own legal representation, is protected every step of the way. And this is a very important part of ethical adoption.
Yes. So that I was never in the room with the two of them. She could tell him anything that she wanted and she was fully protected. Yes. He met with her in Indiana and then reported back to my lawyer. And his report was, wow, she's very pregnant. As we were sort of alluding to, the woman was 9 months pregnant when we connected. And so I was fortunate enough after the state approved me that I could fly out there that weekend. So I got the phone call on a Monday and I flew out there on Friday.
And when was Julia born?
Tuesday. So 8 days later.
It's amazing. So this 8-day story of Julia in your arms is remarkable. And I know we could talk for the full time today all about that, but I would be remiss if I didn't fast forward for a minute. You come home with this baby. You're working in the jewelry industry before you started your own entrepreneurial company. And you decide you are going to create a ring for yourself in honor of this little girl you just adopted and in honor of this story.
Yes.
You had no idea what you were about to launch into the world with that. So why don't you tell me and everybody a little bit about My Story Jewelry and how this all came to be because of that Julia ring?
I was in the world of engagement rings and wedding bands. That was what my family had done for 40 years. And since we were good at making engagement rings and wedding bands, I geared towards a ring. So I wanted something to celebrate motherhood, as often moms do. And they get something that says mama on it. I didn't even look to make it myself. I looked at friends that had made things in the jewelry world. One was a little globe. I was going to put a diamond where Indiana was. Nothing felt right. So I went back and I did a little pave diamond band with Julia's birthstone, east-west. And I wore it selling the engagement rings and wedding bands. And inevitably someone would say, oh, I love your little ring. And I was like, I just adopted a baby because I was so happy. It was this beautiful romantic journey. And inevitably someone would say to me, oh, my daughter's doing IVF. It's terrible. I wish she would adopt. Or my husband's adopted. Or my sister's adopted. Or my two nieces are everybody. I was like, I never heard of one single person that was adopted in my life in 42 years. And now everybody's adopted.
This is what I tell people. Like when they're telling me that they're starting out on this journey, I go, just start saying the word out loud. Because they're like, I don't have a community. I don't know anybody. I go, you do, but you don't know it yet. Just start saying the word out loud wherever you go. And people are going to come out of the woodwork and share their stories with you. And you will not believe it. You won't. And some are strangers. but a lot of it is who you already know. It really is very interesting.
Apparently, and this is just funny, I posted on Facebook after I adopted Julia, and the girl that sat next to me in homeroom for 4 years in high school, her name is Rachel Cohen, so she has the same last name as me, is adopted. I was like, how did I not know that? And I sat next to you.
We didn't talk about this in the
Talk about
80s,
it.
and I'm older
Yes.
than you. So I was in the 80s for high school, and I found out the same thing about one of my best friends since 7th grade. When I said his last cycle doesn't work, I think I'm going to adopt. She goes, I'm so happy to hear you say that. And I was like, why? There's a strange reaction to me. She goes, Becky, I'm adopted. And I go, how would I know that? How would I know that? How have we been through everything since we were 12? And I don't know this because
Isn't
it was
that wild?
1980.
Why?
Like, no one was dealing with this stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that story because I hope people who are listening are like, me too. It's crazy. It's crazy. So keep going. So someone started asking you about the ring, and then
They were like, I love the ring. And then of course I sold one. And finally the stores were said, can you just make all 12 colors for the store? And I'm like, oh, this is so much easier than selling an engagement ring or wedding band. And it's so much more fun. And so that's really how the brand started. Then I was in a store. Thank goodness. The owner of the store said, you need to put it together, get a couple of things, get a logo, get marketing materials, get a display. It didn't even have a name. And then put it together, come back, and I'll buy it as a collection. And I was like, oh my God, why not think of that? A light went off.
That's the entrepreneurial light bulb, right? Is that sometimes it's already there, but someone has to push you there.
Yes. And we were entrenched in bridal. So it didn't occur to me that I had a cool collection. After you get married, you have a baby. And there you stack your family. And now it's so organic and authentic.
And the name My Story is just so genius. I think when we first met, I told you if I was still a publicist, I would have hunted you down to take you on as a client because the story is it's perfect for placements because the jewelry's great, but it really does have a more intimate appeal to people because it's personal. Every piece can be made your own.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that for a minute. All these rings, if people go on your website, there's all these rings, but you can change out a stone for your kids. Or I've watched you post things with a grandmother having 4 stones in it because she has 4 grandchildren. Or you even did something cool with a pendant and coordinates. Talk about that.
That's my favorite one. I'm actually remaking it. So one of the things that I loved, like I said, was a globe. And I was going to put Julia's diamond in Indiana. I loved traveling always, even before Julia was born, where coordinates meant something to me. But I always also try to revert the jewelry back to a way to make it sentimental. If maybe you're not a mom, or maybe you have something with your kids' initials. So for instance, my family is born in Havana, Cuba. Maybe you want to do the coordinates of where your grandmother was born. Maybe you want to do the coordinates of where you got engaged. I've done coordinates, a couple of them for where somebody's from, if their kid is going away to college, don't forget to call home kind of thing. I like the fact that you can really make it to feel that it's telling your story. It doesn't have to be about a mom. It could be because you went to go visit your grandmother every year in this very special place.
That's the thing is the appeal. Of course, it started with you being a mom, but your appeal has just spread out to be so much more global in your messaging about what these messages can be. And I just love that. And so you just talked about some of the custom things you've done for people over the years, but in recent times, you've done some really big custom pieces that are very exciting. Yeah, that cuff you're wearing. Talk about how fun when someone says, I want that, but I want to change the entire way it looks. And as a jewelry designer, some designers don't like that. When a customer says, I want to do my own version, they are like, no, because I'm the designer. How do you feel when someone says, I want that, but I want to change it all?
I don't ever care. I agree. There are some designers that get very nope, I'm the designer. I made it this way. So funny, it might be my experience in the world of bridal. Often people get, let's say, engaged and their stone is passed down from grandma's ring or from their mother's ring or something. And they might not like the mounting. Even if it's a simple band with the head, 50, 60, 70 years ago, they were set very high. There wasn't CAD where you could really make these fine, beautiful prongs. It was a different world. So we always used to take out diamonds and either put them in diamond studs. Sometimes people get divorced. You take that diamond, you put it in a necklace. Right. There's 2 stone rings now. So I always loved repurposing stones. And my dad had a panache for buying stones and not necessarily using them for anything. So after he passed, I think I dug through a lot of stones and I was like, I can use these. And they like might not match. And so, like, for instance, I'm wearing this one.
And I love things that don't match. Just like I said in the intro, I want to do something that's different. And I think there's a lot of us out there that like to be the odd thing.
So like this one is all stones that I just bought and I thought were interesting, but we've done one for our mutual friend, Monique.
Can you describe it to the audience? So in case they're not listening to the thing, let's describe this. And you can say what the name of the cuff is because it's on your website, I'm assuming.
So it's called the MAC. And it is because it's like the Mac Daddy. It's a big, chunky 15 millimeter cuff. And in it is
it's thick, it's beautiful, and it's gorgeous.
It's heavy gold, and gold is really expensive right now. And it's hinged base.
It doesn't hurt you when it goes on and off like a lot of cuffs do. They hurt.
Yeah. So it has
that's great.
Hinge. Yeah, it's beautiful. And it's really special. It's really beautiful. And it can also incorporate your story. So I was going to say, a mutual friend of ours, Monique, saw mine and she's like, I have a couple of emerald rings and they were big and they were in these very old settings. Again, I love it. Go dig through grandma's old jewelry and give me what you got. And she gave...
Again, a lot of us get these gifts through pass downs and it's a very thoughtful, wonderful thing, but it's not our style because you're right. Things have changed and we have these pieces in our jewelry boxes or wherever we stash them. And we're like, well, it's a shame I don't wear that.
Oh my gosh, it kills me when people are like, I have so much in my jewelry box. I'm like, I would come to your house and go through your jewelry box. Like, I love that. Like people like to clean a closet. Give me your jewelry box.
It's great. It's great. So tell me about the piece with her and her fascination for a certain color.
Yeah. So she had an emerald, which she loves green. And another one, I can't remember, maybe it was a green tourmaline, and it was 2 big stones. So I went to my gem dealer and we went back and forth and we took pictures and then I sent her maybe 10 stones to match up. And then after we matched up the stones that she liked with her 2 stones, she sent them back to me and we made a CAD. And it's to the exact specifications of the stone. And we laid it out in the way that she wants it. And then about 3 weeks later, she had this big, gorgeous, knock 'em out of the park cuff.
Amazing. For those listening, a CAD is like the prototype before an actual custom piece of jewelry is made. Is that a good way to explain it?
Yep. It's the computer design with the exact specifications of the stone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. And I know you've gotten several requests for that. You just did a beautiful one with ocean colors that you post to on your Instagram feed. So if you like pretty things and more than pretty things, you should look at Jackie's Instagram feed, which she's going to tell you about in a few minutes. But all right. So I want to talk about jewelry all day long because I love the messages you put on jewelry. I love when you come up with new ideas. I really want to talk about your daughter right now because she's 11. And I do want to also say, I don't think I said this in your intro. So Jackie joined helpusadopt.org is what I do as a full-time job now. It is an adoption grant program nationwide. And one of the things that makes us different than others is that we are inclusive in our mission statement. And that includes single parents and it also includes all religions. And Jackie, I know that matters to you tremendously. And so when we first met, Jackie's like, I think I have to get involved. I'm like, I think you have to join the board. I don't think you have a choice. And that was pretty much signed to the deal. So you were a board member for years, and now you are an emeritus board member, which is really the honorary board that very involved board members transition to when the actual board member role becomes either finished in a time period or too much for the actual schedule. So there's that. So because of that, my long-winded intro, Jackie's been very involved with me in different markets where she has contacts, and we love working together. And it's been one of the most fun things, I have to say. I think it's been one of the most fun things we've done in the last 18 years. Is first we went to Los Angeles for the launch there. And
That was amazing.
she's the one who introduced me to Ashley Bergman of Milestones by AB. And Ashley's a guest on the Fawcett Report as well. So this is just terrific. And obviously partnered with my other friend, Veronica Beard, out there in the Los Angeles store. And then it was tremendous. We just hit it out of the park. So fun. And then Jackie moved to Miami. And I was watching my donor list and my board list and friends list. And all of a sudden, I noticed like a perfect storm happening in Miami last year, same way it happened in LA 3 years ago. And I said, hey, Jackie, you think we should do a Veronica Beard event in Miami? We did it. But the best part about it was my youngest daughter, Brooke, started seeing these business trips I was going on. And she was like, I think I want to get involved. I'm like, it's work. It's not vacation, it's work. And long story short, she agreed to all the terms and she came with me to Miami, as did her best friend, who's also adopted, because once she heard about the terms, she was like, I'm in. And the deal was this: they had to work the door because I didn't bring in event staff, and they had to speak on a panel where I would interview them in the quick fire question format. Jackie, you brought Julia to meet the big girls, 2 15-year-olds meeting the 11-year-old. It was great. She basically saw the girls when she walked into the event and ditched Jackie. It was like the fastest ditch ever. Like she was sold on Brooke and Katie, which was just so cool.
Yeah.
And then I did something that I don't always do. I invited, on a spur of the moment whim, without running it by Jackie, I invited Julia to come up on the panel with Brooke and Katie. And I didn't know what she was going to say. And I think she was in the chair before I finished asking her to sit there. It was so great. And I hope you'll forgive me for not asking your permission for that. And now I'm going to say to you, how was that, watching your kid do that and answer those questions and tell everybody, like, what the hell happened up there? It was magic.
It was magic. And it really took my breath away, because 2 things. If, as a mom, I looked at it as, this is amazing. Look how proud you are. Look what an amazing journey you had, that you can share your story with tremendous pride. I remember being out to dinner with one of her little friends when they were little. And the little girl was like, wait, I don't understand. You're adopted? What does that mean? And then I explained, and she says, wait, why didn't the other mom want you? And Julia, without a beat, said, no, that's not what happened. My other mom, she just couldn't take care of me. And she knew that she couldn't take care of me so that my mom could take better care of me. So that's what happened.
There was a plan for care, a well thought out plan for care. That's what adoption is.
And it was amazing, because my heart dropped. I thought, oh my God, my daughter's going to get her heart broken because this girl is saying, why didn't your other mom want you? But Julia had the confidence and without missing a beat, she was like, no, that's not what happened, because we had talked about it since obviously the moment she was born, because there was no dad. So it was very obvious that our family dynamic was different. So it was an easy conversation. So as a mom, I thought to myself, wow, look how strong and proud she is. And this is a tween that is going to go places. She's going to be a Becky Fawcett one day. She's going to be a spokesperson. She's going to make a difference. Like, I was so full of pride. But then the other part of me also said, wow, she has 2 girls to look up to. Look at these young leaders. I couldn't believe how exciting it was, because Julia could look at these girls and be like, wow, they're really cool. And look what they're doing. I want to be just like them. Oh, I am just like them. They're adopted. They're not different. I'm not different. There's a lot of people out there that are adopted, and it's pretty cool. And I had those 2 feelings that night just come together, and it was magic. It was so beautiful.
Yeah. So this part, I do want to tell everybody. So it was just quick fire questions. I went down the line and I told Julia, listen, I'm not a monster. I didn't set her up for total failure. I said, you can go last. You're going to hear quick questions that each girl gets. You can hear what they say. And if I get to you and you don't want to talk, that's okay. Just say, Becky, pass. And you will be fine. But I think you might want to sit up here. And so we didn't really know what was going to happen. We didn't really know. And so the first question was, best thing about being adopted. And Brooke's friend Katie went first. And I don't remember what she said. It was just such a blur. I think she said something like, I'm adopted by wonderful people and I have a family and I live in New York City and my best friend's adopted, because that's Brooke. And Brooke, when they said, what's the best thing about being adopted? Brooke said, sharing my story with other people. And then it got to Julia. And I said, Julia, best thing about being adopted. What did Julia say? Do you remember? Because I'll never forget it.
No, I'll never forget. She said, I get a loving home.
You get a loving home. The crowd, I'm not allowed to curse, went effing nuts. Yeah. 50 women in that store, all generations, young to old. Yeah. They went nuts on the first question. I felt like I was Mick Jagger on the Rolling Stones on stage. I was like, next question. Worst thing about being adopted. And Katie says, I'm Black. My parents are white and they were there at the event. You think there's something wrong with our family? There's not. Stop it. I get to Brooke. I asked Brooke, worst thing about being adopted. She said, when I meet other adopted kids and they don't want to talk about it, they're embarrassed and they're ashamed that they're adopted. She goes, I want to tell you all, stop it. Stop making them feel this way. And I get to Julia. And what does she say?
She said that it can be scary and confusing for other people, but it's actually really beautiful. That some kids just don't understand that what it's about.
And she also went on to say, some kids don't understand and they're mean to me in school. Stop it. And that was my moment where I looked at the room and I was like, you heard it. It's not just me telling you to stop it. It's them. They're the adoptees. It's their story. Stop it. Then I went on to say, one thing you want to change. I don't even remember what happened next. All of them, all three of them kept saying, the world tells us there's something wrong with us. Stop it. That was the overview of the rest of the questions. And it was so powerful. People came up to me and they said, Becky, you know, you're pretty dynamic, but you can't hold a candle to those girls. It's true. So we're going to do more of that. I have to figure out how to do that next. It's a little hard to, and now I have other people who they heard about it and they want their girls involved in the next thing. I don't know, tune in everybody, but it's really cool. These girls feeling so confident. They're changing the dynamic of how adoption is perceived. And it's very cool.
Very beautiful. It was a very special night for me because, like I said, it made me think, wow, this kid's going to do stuff. Like she's going to take this experience in life and it's going to shape her. It has shaped her, but college and beyond. And like I said, just seeing other teens that are adopted and how can we take all these young women or young women and men that are adopted and how can we create a voice that they feel they can make a difference in this world?
That's one of the things that we try to do at helpusadopt.org. Like I'm trying to level the playing field, not only for people wanting to adopt, not only for people dealing with the financial obstacles involved. I'm trying to level the transparency field, right? How do we talk about it? What do we talk about it? What's off limits? What are you not allowed to ask me? What wording aren't you allowed to use? That's offensive. How do you educate people in a way that can help? And I tell people who don't have adopted kids, I'm like, you should be talking about what adoption is at the dinner table. Goes back to your story at the dinner table with that little girl. Yeah. Now, listen, we have probably time for one more question. One of the things I also want to talk about from that night with the panel when Julia spoke that was just terrific was your mom was there too. And I've met Jackie's mom several times and she's just the loveliest woman, but I don't know her well. We know of each other. And she came up to me in tears at the end of the event and hugged me and said, oh my gosh, what you gave my granddaughter tonight, the empowerment was just terrific. And I go, hey, I just provided the platform. Your daughter did all the work. And this is it. Like, we have to be here in the adoption community and the mom community beyond the adoption mom community to help each other and to support each other.
Yeah, it was a moment, like I said, that I think a lot of things shifted about just seeing a potential in my daughter. I always think, I don't know what Julia is going to be good at. I hate cooking. I don't care about food. It means nothing to me. My daughter experiments and mixes things and takes toast and puts some butter on and then puts salt and pepper I made garlic bread. I'm like, oh, okay. I made cinnamon toast. I made that. She makes little experiments. Or she loves horses. I can't stand animals. She wants a dog. She went horseback riding in Pennsylvania.
Tell her she can come live with Aunt Becky in New York for the summers and she can have 2 dogs and we'll be good.
Yes. So I always think it's a curious thing being a parent of an adopted child. What are they going to excel in? Who are they? What's going to fill their bucket? And so this was a moment that I thought, oh, I can see maybe she'll be a veterinarian because she likes animals. But this was a moment, like I said, that this was a life talent that's going to take her places. You could be a public speaker for anything, but it was so rich and so beautiful and so powerful to watch her that I just think it was like, oh, this is amazing.
I do have some thoughts on this. So a long time ago, there was an article that I came across that said in recent generations, first of all, it's only in recent generations that adoptees talk about being adopted and adoptive parents talk about being adoptive parents, right? Like it's been shameful and secretive and hidden for decades and generations. So this is a recent thing. And this psychiatrist or psychologist wrote an article saying, adopted kids might actually have an advantage in this world that biological kids don't. And it's the fact that their parents, their adoptive parents, we don't share biology with our children. Hence the question about inherent traits. This person said, this might be the first generation of children who are actually empowered to become exactly who they are. Because there's no mini-me syndrome when you are an adoptive parent, because we are very aware as adoptive mothers, at least I am, you are too, but yeah, I am very aware that I am raising someone else's biology, very aware of it, because A, we are a transparent, open adoption household, but B, the world wants to remind me of this every step of the way, which is fine, dear world, but stop it, to coin a phrase from the girls. So it's funny. And when we are with their birth parents in these open adoption scenarios, which my girls are now 15 and 19, and we have these visits at least once a year, if not twice, but it's hard to get all of us together. I always have these moments where we're gazing out at the kid and I say, God, they're all you. And then which child, depending on which child I'm saying that about, their respective birth parent goes, I was just thinking the same thing. They're all you. And this is it. They can be both of us. They get their inherent traits and their biologies from what I say, the women who love them first. And then maybe they become who they are because the women who get to love them forever get to nurture those strengths. And I think it is a very cool realization. I think that these children who are allowed to fully become who they are, and when they are doing things like us, it's funny. My kids look like they came out of my body. Julia looks like she came out of your body. We do embrace those moments where you're like, how did this happen? But it is such a cool thing. And I think your girl got the brave gene from you. I will say that. She was so confident at 11. What were you doing at 11? I was probably hiding under a bed, hoping no one would talk to me at 11. There is no way I would have done that.
That's what I mean. It was a moment that I'm not thinking about college right now, but I was like, this is going to change the trajectory of where she started. Now.
She started writing her college essay with this. I tell every adoptee. And again, I hope none of them apply to the schools my kids want to go to. But this is it. And you want your college essay to stand out, but this is it. You have a story before you even came into this world. Use it and use it for change in a positive way. And that is the beauty of what we're doing. I'm just so grateful that you brought her that night. I'm so grateful you trusted me to yank her up on the panel, and for all of your transparent conversations with her leading up to that. You gave her that chutzpah to not worry, and she brought the house down.
It was great. And I can't wait till next time that she does something, because it's really beautiful to watch her come into her own. Like you said, this is your college application. This is your college essay. You are going to do something amazing. And I just know it. She wants us to foster, me and Julia, like she wants us to foster. And as you said, we just moved to Miami. So I was like, let's get our apartment. Let's get our dog. And then let's see. Okay. But she pushes me. If I could, she would want me to adopt. Baby steps.
Yeah. It's all good. See, the thing about that, Jackie, is adoptive moms don't have a ticking biological clock. So anything's possible.
Yes.
I always say that with a wink. And then I go home and I'm like, oh my God, what did I just say out loud? But it's really cool. And My Story Jewelry has also come into its own in recent years. And you're just on fire with so many good new designs, so many good trunk shows across the country and partners. And where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram. It's at My Story Jewelry. And then online, it's mystoryfinejewelry.com. Then there's really a couple of stores around the country. I'm not in some of the bigger ones like I used to be in Barney's, which was like the best thing in the
Barney's
entire world.
rest in peace. May Barney's rest in peace.
We love that store. That was really amazing. And another sort of accolade that sort of happened by accident about becoming a mom, and it wouldn't have happened without adoption. And so that was exciting. It was just an accident that I met the buyer, and she was a woman that was trying to adopt as a single mom. And then she was asking me about my jewelry, and she said, how much is this? And how much is this? And I started talking to her. She said, well, I'm the CMO of Barney's. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Great.
So
but this is it. It's magic. The whole story of adoption is magic, and it leads us to new, funny, wonderful relationships. I do have to share with you before we leave, because that's part of it, my Fawcett Report sweatshirt.
Yeah, I love it.
So this is a story. Jennifer Reed Designs, who I'm plugging here too, even though she wasn't a guest right this moment. I saw her sweatshirt through our friend Caroline, Shop with Caroline, and she was wearing one that said something.
Okay.
And I thought, that's a really cool looking sweatshirt. I'm going to order a face of adoption. It's my trademarked slogan at Help Us Adopt. I am a face of adoption. You are a face. And so I ordered it. And then Jennifer reached out and said, I'm making your sweatshirt, but I'm fascinated about the saying. Can you tell me about it? And I started telling her about it and my story of adopting and Help Us Adopt. Next thing you know, we get on a phone call, and guess what? Her husband's adopted.
Of course.
So we've become friends in such an interesting way over that. And when I told her I was launching the Fawcett Report, this sweatshirt showed up as a gift. And it was just so lovely. And this is it. You and I cheer each other on all day long. And women, friends,
we have a good,
we need to be the loudest in the room for each other. Yeah. And you are for me. And I hope you feel the same, because you're terrific. And your jewelry's great, but your daughter's better. And I'm going to ride the Julia speaking train for a while.
It was a moment that, like, I know is going to be a game changer in her life for sure.
Yeah, it was pretty great, pretty special. I'm so glad for everybody who listened to the Fawcett Report today. And Jackie, I'm so glad you were here. Here's to seeing the world a little differently today, and to possibly using your voice like Brooke, Katie, and Julia to make a difference. 30 Seconds with Becky Fawcett. Today, one of the things that I want to talk about is how to get started when you have no idea how to get started in something. On this podcast today, you heard about Jackie, who wanted to get started in adoption and had no idea how, but she started talking to people, and that's the trick. So I happen to be really good at figuring out how to get started in something, one of my best skills. However, for those of you who don't, find one person that you love and trust and feel safe with, and tell them where you're stuck. Tell them where you hope to get. Tell them what piece of information you're missing. And if they can't help you, they might be able to introduce you to someone who can. And that's how it is. We all want to help each other. I really do think that. I really do think we all want to help each other get to that end road of success, whatever that means to you. 30 Seconds with Becky Fawcett. Thank you for listening to the Fawcett Report. I'm so glad you were here today. And here's to seeing the world a little differently and possibly using your voice to make a difference. You can follow the Fawcett Report on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. And you can message me on Instagram or Facebook. And I will actually respond as long as you're not mean. You can disagree with me. You can share your point of view, but you can't be mean, because I don't do mean. And finally, if you're curious about my adoption advocacy and family building work through helpusadopt.org, you can find us there on Instagram and Facebook, as well as through the website, helpusadopt.org. See you next time.